Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I will be starting to show my American and also my Canadian singles collection. I haven't really got enough Canadian singles to give them a video by themselves, so I've just put them in with the American singles, and they are very similar anyway, so hopefully that shouldn't cause too much of an issue. Now I've got some singles. I've got a couple on Swan, a few on VJ, but most of them are on Capitol. And I don't have anywhere near all of the American singles. I've just got quite a small collection. And also, my knowledge on the American singles isn't brilliant. So if I make any mistakes or if there's any information gaps you can fill, I'd be very much appreciated if you could let me know in the comment section. Now the first one I have is a copy of She Loves You on the Swan label. I've just taken it out of its sleeve. I know there are many different variations of this you can get, and I don't believe that this is an original one, but it's still nice to have anyway. And as you can probably see, it's not in tip-top condition, but it plays through well enough. And here it is. Here's the B-side, I'll Get You. And here is a picture cover of the Beatles' She Loves You on the Swan label, although I suspect that this may be a reissue. But anyway, here it is. Got the catalogue number below there. And here's the back. And the record itself is different to the one I've just shown you, because it's got a narrower font on She Loves You and the Beatles, and there are a few other differences. But this one here is in much nicer condition than the last one. And here's the B-side. I'll Get You. Now this next single is on VJ, and the label is in really bad condition. And it's Please Please Me on one side, and it's backed with From Me to You. This was a double single release that came out on VJ. Two great songs. Unfortunately, there is a lot of wear on the label. Still. Now the next record I have to show is a copy of Ain't She Sweet on Atco Records. This may be an original, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's got Nobody's Child on the B-side. The one thing that I really like about American singles actually is that they usually have the song time written on the label, and I think that's quite interesting, because I know the UK singles don't have that. And here is on the Oldies label. It is, let's take it out of its cover. Do You Want to Know a Secret on one side, and Thank You Girl on the other. Now this of course wasn't a single released in the UK. Now this may be a counterfeit copy, but again I'm not totally sure, but I suspect it may be. If anyone knows, then I would very much appreciate it if you could tell me. Now this next piece is probably one of my favourites. It's an American EP, and it's 4 by the Beatles on like a sort of turquoise coloured Capitol label. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the picture sleeve that comes with it, and the vinyl doesn't look in the greatest shape, but it plays through nicely enough. And to be honest, I'm just pleased to get this, because it is difficult to get, especially over here in the UK, so I was very pleased to get this. And it's got 4 tracks from the With the Beatles album, or from the Meet the Beatles album in America. All My Loving, Roll Over Beethoven, Please Mr. Postman, and This Boy. And this next single is I Want to Hold Your Hand, back with I Saw Her Standing There. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have the picture cover that came with it. But this is the beginning of my Capitol Swell labels. And I do really like the colourful design of the American Capitol Swell label. and I saw her standing there on the B-side instead of This Boy, which is what would have been on the UK issue. And it's got a name there, Margaret, I believe it says, but that's not the end of the world. And this is one of my picture covers in my American collection. It's the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night, backed with I Should Have Known Better. Now, in terms of creasing and splits, it's actually in very good condition. However, it does have somebody's name written there, Oliver. And this isn't really a bad thing. If you look over here, it's got Miami Records. So, presumably, that's where it was sold at the Miami Records shop. And it's got that stamp on both sides. So that's a nice bit of history, I suppose. And in terms of the actual picture cover design, this is one of my favourites. I just really like the little collage of the 3 pictures they've got here. And here is the label. There's the B-side. Unfortunately, it's got a sticker there, F. Next up is a copy of I Feel Fine, which is not in very good condition. Here it is anyway. It's got quite a lot of writing and stuff on the label. But then I didn't pay very much for this. Here, as you can see, it's actually got a stain right across both the vinyl and the label. Not quite sure what that is. But I mean, although there's quite a bit of surface noise, the records don't actually jump, so that's good. But one thing I don't really like about the single though is that on the American mix of I Feel Fine there is a lot of echo or reverb or whatever it's called, and it doesn't sound that good to me personally. And it's a shame because a lot of American mixes I actually really like, but this particular one I don't really like. Next up is Help. Here it is. And this, like the UK one, is backed with I'm Down. There we go. And here is another of my picture covers. This is Yesterday, backed with Act Naturally, which again wasn't a single in the UK, although it should have been in my opinion. And here's the B-side, or the back of the cover I should say. And overall, despite a little creasing, it's in pretty good condition. So I'm pleased with that. And here is the record itself, which is also in nice condition. And the B-side. And here is the AA side of We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper. And there's the other side. As you can see, this one's belonged to Jeff. Still nice to have though. And here is another picture cover that I really like. And it's Nowhere Man backed with What Goes On. 2 amazing songs. I know What Goes On isn't a Beatles song that too many people are particularly fond of, but I really, really like What Goes On. It's actually one of my favourite Rubber Soul tracks, and also one of my favourite songs that Ringo sings. So for me, this is a really nice pairing of 2 great songs from Rubber Soul. Nowhere Man was definitely a good choice to be a single. There's both sides of that. And here's the actual record itself. Here's the A side. And here is the B side. Again with somebody's name or something written on in the top right corner there. Here is Paperback Writer. Backed with Rain. And here's another picture cover, and it's Yellow Submarine and Eleanor Rigby. Quite an interesting picture cover for this. One thing that's interesting is that Yellow Submarine is in the bigger font than Eleanor Rigby on both sides, whereas normally on these American picture covers it has one song big on one side and then the other one small, and then on the reverse it would have it the other way around. So for some reason this isn't the case on this one, and if anyone knows, then I would very much appreciate it if you could tell me, because that's interesting. And here's the record. Once again, somebody's name written on. And here is Eleanor Rigby. This single here is actually Canadian. If you can see down there, it's got Canada in the brackets, which is right for 1966, because that's when they started doing that. And you can see it on either side as well. And this here is an American version of Yellow Submarine. The capital label does look very similar, except in the perimeter text it has USA rather than Canada on both sides. And here is one of my last picture covers. It's another Canadian one, and this is All You Need Is Love, backed with Baby You're a Rich Man. And as you can see on this picture cover, it's got Baby You're a Rich Man in big text on one side and All You Need Is Love on the other. And this is a series copy at one point. And the picture cover's in pretty nice condition for this. And here is the record. Again with Canada in the perimeter text at the bottom there. And Baby You're a Rich Man on the B side. And the singles I have from here on out are all later issues of previously released singles, apart from one or two. But anyway, I'll go through these. So this is an Apple reissue of the single Slow Down, backed with Matchbox. And what's interesting is that there isn't a great deal in terms of information on these labels. They're quite blank, there's absolutely nothing down that side. But anyway, both of these tracks were from the British Long Tall Sally EP, but they've got a single release in America. And this is a reissue of it in the Apple sleeve. And this next few singles are on the orange capital label, and despite the fact the sleeve says Help I'm Down, this is actually not that single. It's If I Fell, backed with And I Love Her. And this was a singles release from the Hard Day's Night album. And here's the B-side. These tracks are in mono, as it says there. This next one is 8 Days a Week, backed with I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. And there's a B-side. Very good choice of B-side. 8 Days a Week is actually one of my favourite Beatles songs, and this is another great track from the Beatles for Sale album. And here is Ticket to Ride, back with Yes It Is. Interestingly, it's got down there from the United Artists release 8 Arms to Hold You, which I believe was the original name for the Help film, although it got changed at the last minute and it was too late to change the records. Although it's surprising that on the 70s release they've still got that on there. I'd have thought that they'd have changed it by now. But again, if anyone knows the reason for that, then I'd very much be grateful if you could tell me. Now this single wasn't actually released in the 60s. This was a single released to promote the rock and roll music compilation, which came out in both the UK and the US, although the single was only out in the US. and it's Got to Get You Into My Life, backed with Helter Skelter. And I'll just show you the picture cover first. So here it is, and there's the other side. It's an interesting pairing of songs. They aren't really of the same genre of music, if you like. Helter Skelter is probably one of the heaviest tracks the Beatles ever did, and Getting You Into My Life is quite a bit softer than that, but still two excellent songs nevertheless. And this is in stereo, and as I said, it's for the Rock and Roll Music LP. And there's Helter Skelter on the B-side. Now this next single is on the Blue Starline label, and it's another copy of 8 Days a Week, and I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. Now in the mid-60s, I believe it was, Capitol released some Beatles singles on their Budget label, which is the Starline label, and instead of being on a yellow and orange swirl label, they are on like a green swirl label, and they are very, very difficult to come by. I would love to get one day, but they are pretty rare. But anyway, this is a reissue of the Starline singles, and it's exactly the same as the orange label one, really, just obviously on a different label, still in mono. And there's the B-side. And the next couple of singles are from the revived Rainbow Capitol label, which I believe was from the early 80s. And here's the first of those, Can't Buy Me Love. I've just noticed this is also a Starline release, and it's in mono. And here's the B-side, You Can't Do That. Next is a copy of I Feel Fine, backed with She's a Woman on the same label. Bit of sticker damage there, unfortunately, but that's nothing too bad. It actually says they're originally released in November 1964 on both sides. And the final single in my American/Canadian collection is a copy of Help, backed with I'm Down on the Purple Capitol label. Again, this is a Starline release, and still in mono. Okay, so that's the end of this week's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And next week I'll be doing a video showing some of my foreign Beatles 7-inches from places like Australia, Brazil, quite a few different countries. So I hope you'll all tune in for that. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.